Imagine the scene. Vladimir Putin, the man excluded from major powers for over 3 years, walking on American soil to repeated applause from Donald Trump. The red carpet rolled out, cameras capturing every move, every smile, the whole world watching in disbelief. How could the man leading a bloody war in Ukraine be welcomed this way in the United States? This moment in Alaska will remain an iconic image. On one side, Donald Trump, the American president, playing the card of spectacular openness. On the other, Vladimir Putin relaxed, almost triumphant. The two men walk toward each other, shake hands, and pose for the photographers. The moment is carefully staged, like a geopolitical theater performance. And yet, behind the symbol, the reality is very different. The central subject is still the war in Ukraine. American military aircraft fly over the summit venue, a reminder that the United States firepower is very real. But the contrast between the luxurious protocol and the dramatic context strikes global opinion. As the two leaders pose, a journalist dares to ask Putin a direct question. "Mr. President, will you continue killing civilians?" Silence. The Russian leader pretends not to hear, his face impassive. Moments later, Donald Trump invites him into his armored limousine. Putin accepts, smiling, even laughing. The image shocks. The Russian leader, isolated for years, now appears completely at ease alongside the American president. Talks were initially supposed to be held face-to-face. Instead, they gathered advisors from both sides and lasted nearly 3 hours. 3 hours that ended with a press conference during which Vladimir Putin carefully flattered his host. President Trump said that if he had been president, there would have been no war. I believe that is true. A statement heavy with meaning, suggesting Putin skillfully used psychology to appeal to American opinion. For his part, Donald Trump warmly thanked his counterpart, calling the meeting very productive. Yet no concrete progress was announced. The scheduled working lunch was canceled, and in the end, 6 hours spent in Alaska produced nothing new. Subscribe now to follow every detail of these world-shaping developments. What stands out most is Donald Trump's sudden shift in rhetoric. On the eve of the summit, he had promised very serious consequences for Russia if no ceasefire was reached. But after the meeting, his tone changed. Now he spoke of a peace agreement, leaving Volodymyr Zelensky with the responsibility to conclude, a turnaround that sparked criticism across the United States. Another striking detail, the press conference. Normally, Donald Trump enjoys answering reporters at length. This time, nothing of the sort. The protocol was changed. No questions allowed. A surprising decision, giving the impression of a president on the defensive. Putin, meanwhile, spoke for 7 minutes, twice as long as Trump. Body language told the rest. The Russian leader, calm and prepared, delivered a scripted message. Trump, on the other hand, clenched his teeth, a sign of frustration, according to experts. And to cement his renewed confidence, Putin even suggested continuing talks in Moscow. Trump, hesitant, replied, "That's interesting. I'll surely get criticized, but it could be considered." A phrase that unleashed a storm of reactions in the United States. Meanwhile, the war continued. On the very night following the summit, Russia launched 85 drones and 1 missile on Kyiv. Moscow even claimed to have captured 2 new areas in eastern Ukraine. Far from any concessions, Putin pressed forward with his military campaign. Around the world, reactions poured in. Emmanuel Macron insisted it was essential to continue supporting Ukraine. In Kyiv, citizens expressed shock and anger. "Rolling out a red carpet for a man destroying my country? It's unbearable," said one Ukrainian woman. On social media, critical montages spread rapidly. Trump as Putin's puppet, handshakes against a backdrop of Ukrainian ruins. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed he had a 1-hour talk with Trump, later joined by European leaders. He announced another meeting in Washington, in hopes of salvaging what remains of the peace process. In Russia, state television celebrated what it called a victory. Official media highlighted one key fact: no new American sanctions were imposed. For Moscow, that alone was a triumph. This Alaska summit will likely be remembered not for what it produced, but for the images it generated. Images shocking to Ukraine, encouraging to Russia, and embarrassing to the United States. And one question remains. In this power struggle between Washington and Moscow, who really came out on top? Subscribe now to keep following every stage of this global confrontation, where every gesture, every word, every handshake could reshape the future.